welcome you to the second presentation this year of the First Tuesday Lecture. Our speaker tonight is Professor Chuck Conkle, who's an associate professor in computer and information systems. After earning a master's degree in CIS at Drury University, Professor Conkle joined the Rock Valley College faculty in the fall of 2002. During his tenure at RVC, in addition to his teaching, he has served as a faculty advisor for the student clubs and assisted in the creative development and deployment of software applications to create podcasts to iTunes U. Over the years, Chuck has also contributed his expertise to the community by serving as board associate, and he has served on a task force for a Patriots Gateway grant to train and mentor high school and college-age students in basic computer repair and other computer-related topics. Tonight, he will discuss the evolution and ever-changing platform in information technology. Please join me in welcoming Professor Chuck Conkle.
Well, good evening. How's everyone doing tonight? Doing okay? Well, thank you, Diane, for the intro. And it's great to be here. And this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart on surviving in a post-PC world because I teach mainly with programming students and also with future programmers. And one of the things I'm seeing businesses lean towards is mobile devices in their business. That's what we're going to talk about tonight, some of the evolution of where we have come from and where we are now with mobile platform. Just by raise of hands, how many of you have a smartphone or a mobile tablet on you right now? A smartphone or a mobile tablet? Okay, about a little over half of you. Okay, great. How many of your workplaces use a smartphone or mobile tablet in their day in and day out business for anything? Okay, great. All right. And how many of you are planning on in the next couple years purchasing a tablet device of any kind, whether it be iPad, whether it be an Android device, and in the next couple years you're looking at probably purchasing a tablet? Okay, great. So out of all those questions, around 100% of you either are using a tablet or mobile device, or you're going to be using. I'm going to be actually presenting tonight from my iPad here, which is using AirPlay, which is a service in the iPad to display it on the overhead wirelessly. And so after the talk tonight, if you want to come up and look at how I have my setup, you can definitely do that. I've split up the talk into three separate areas. Wave 1 is the desktop area. Wave 2 is a web era. And Wave 3 is a post-PC era, where we're at today, I believe. You might have heard of the term post-PC maybe in the last couple years. The term actually started around 2000, but it's really prevalent now. I want to give you some detail about myself and where I've come from, with computers anyway. The first was a 30-pound IBM 5155. It was actually noted as a mobile device, but it's 30 pounds, okay? In fact, I think I threw my right shoulder out a few times carrying it around. It was so heavy. But this was my very first computer. It came out in 1984, at a price tag of $4,225. I purchased it in '88, I believe, for around $800 is what I paid for it then. It had no mouse to use. It was all a monochrome screen, and the program I used mainly on it was WordPerfect, which some of you might remember. It was all keyboard commands, and I did begin my programming actually on this platform. Let's forward fast to today. This is a device I normally carry around 99.9% of the time in all of my classes, during the day when I program is this device right here. Any application I do not have on this iPad, I can actually remote into a work device to get that application and do that work. And we'll talk about that at the end of the talk. But this is basically the 1.44 pound device that I carry around now all the time. A lot of difference between 30 pounds and 1.44 pounds, especially on your back and shoulder and things of that nature. The spring quarter 2012 was a big momental time frame and kind of a benchmark for mobile technology. For the first time, PCs in a generation did not consume a majority of commodity and memory chips. Now, if you don't know anything about computers, you probably know that they run on some type of memory to start them up and to function. Well, for the most part, PCs, desktop PCs, and laptops have dominated this market in memory for almost the last 30, 40 years. And so, but it's at 49%, the spring quarter 2012, second quarter 2012. Everything else is mobile tablets, meaning iPads, Droid devices, mobile phones. And so that's a big thing. That's huge. And so what that's saying is manufacturers are purchasing less memory for personal computers, desktops and laptops than they are for mobile devices, okay? And so that is a huge benchmark. An article written by a firm called IHS that does a lot of marketing stats on where things are at financially quoted this. I wanted to quote it here. The arrival of the PostPC era doesn't mean people will stop using personal computers or even necessarily that the PC market will stop expanding, said Clifford Limek, memory analyst of IHS. What the post-PC era does mean is that personal computers are not at the center of technology universe anymore. So it doesn't mean that the PCs at your workplace or even in school are going away really, but we're seeing a shift in how mobile technologies beginning to replace basically eventually the PC platform. So wave one, the desktop era we'll talk about first. Wave two, the web era we'll talk about second. And then thirdly, the post-PC era. In the desktop era, in 1946, the first digital computer was the ENIAC, developed at the University of Pennsylvania. It took up 1,800 square feet, 50,000 vacuum tubes, 50 tons in weight, and performed major calculations. And this is a picture of some folks working at the university, programming basically calculations with different plug-and-play wires as they would plug them in. We'll see a video here in just a second describing all of this. Second, in 1975, the first personal computer, the Altair 8880. 8880 relied on a series of switches to program input and output of the data. And basically, users would have to come over and then you'd have to flip 8 switches at a time, up or down, to program word processing, calculations, and it did work and it did function. And it worked great for that time period. It had input and output data. Then in 75, the first computer, portable computer by IBM came out, the 5500. It was 50 pounds, 5-inch screen, 64 kilobytes of memory at $4,500 price tag. This guy's really proud to own it, as you can see. Then in 76, the first Apple computer, the Apple II, came out. Steve Jobs, who recently passed, was a part of the birth of this computer. And it was 2 5.25-inch floppies at $1,200 price tag. This was my kids' first computer. They actually had an Apple IIe, I believe, that I bought from a math teacher that had about 500 little 5 1/4 floppy disks that had Oregon Trail. Anybody remember the program Oregon Trail ever? We got 2 people that remember that. Okay. It's a mathematical program and kind of a, getting from point A to point B. Then 83, the first PC clone came out, the compact portable. This ran IBM software. And then, as you can see, it had a foldable keyboard on it, had a case on it, and it also weighed about 50 pounds. Now we're going to go to a video kind of explaining the life cycle here.
One way to understand how far digital technology has come is to look back at the first electronic digital computers.
The first Univacs had the computing power of your $10 digital watch. Yeah, it was really low.
Now they're classic dinosaurs, big, slow, and extinct. It wasn't until much later that World War II helped spawn the first true electronic digital computers. One of the earliest in America was the Electronic Numerical Integrator and Computer, better known as ENIAC. The ENIAC was designed to quickly figure firing tables for artillery pieces headed to war. ENIAC was huge, 100 feet long with a weight of 30 tons. It contained almost 70,000 resistors, 10,000 capacitors, and 6,000 switches. It could perform up to 5,000 additions, 357 multiplications, and 38 divisions every second. But ENIAC wasn't completed until 3 months after Japan surrendered. Nevertheless, ENIAC was a milestone. In 1951, the Remington Rand Company introduced the Univac, the first computer to be sold commercially. It cost a mere $1 million for an entire setup. The Univac was a much faster machine than ENIAC, but only used 5,000 vacuum tubes, as opposed to ENIAC's 19,000. Although the Pentagon, General Electric, and DuPont all used Univacs, computers were still too expensive for most businesses. In 1959, Robert Noyce and Jack Kilby, engineers for rival transistor manufacturers, independently came up with breakthroughs that led to the same revolutionary idea: an entire network of electronic components, transistors and all, incorporated onto a single chip of silicon. But what really made the computer a ubiquitous device was the advent of the microprocessor. Basically, an entire computer on a chip. Intel introduced the 4004 chip in 1971. The $200 chip delivered as much computing power as the ENIAC did in 1945. The 4004 opened the door to the personal computer revolution. As chip prices came down, a few inexpensive build-it-yourself computer kits started appearing on the market. The Altair was one of the early kits introduced in 1975. At $400 per kit instead of $25,000 for a commercial computer, the Altair generated a lot of interest.
This is an Altair 8800 computer, and to program it, you had to flip these switches 8 at a time relatively quickly in order to have it do what you wanted it to do. It was capable of running word processing programs and accounting programs. This was really the computer that started the personal computer revolution in the United States.
Obviously, the term computer-friendly would have to wait. But 2 guys from San Francisco wanted to change that. Steve Jobs sold his Volkswagen, and Stephen Wozniak sold his HP calculator to finance the Apple Company and introduced the Apple II computer in 1977. It was a plug-and-play device with no wires to solder. It was also reasonably priced at $1,200. The Apple II was a huge hit. Soon other companies introduced competing products. Hoping to take a big blue bite out of Apple's market share, IBM introduced their version of a personal computing device, simply known as the PC, in 1981. Today, microprocessors are in everything from refrigerators to Fords, watches to water sprinklers. They are the on-ramps to the information superhighway.
So if you can think for just a second, we went from the ENIAC that took up a room about this size to this within that short period of time. To me, that's just mind-boggling. That's a crazy to think about. And everything I'm reading, research-wise, says we're still in the infancy stage when it comes to mobile technology, meaning what we're doing now is nothing to what we'll be doing in 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, or 20 years from now. And so it's not a question, you'll find out here in just a second, of are we in a post-PC world, is what are we going to do now that we know that we're there? Where are we going next? This is where it all began, which is the second part. We just went over the desktop era. This is a web era. In '57, the Soviet Sputnik was launched, and some signals were sent from the Soviet Sputnik that piqued the interest of U.S. and defense, as you can probably imagine. President Eisenhower commissioned ARPA, the Advanced Research Project Agency, to figure out a way to link research facilities, which are basically universities from both the East and West Coast, to connect to one another. In '71, the first message was sent using the internet, or what it was called then, ARPANET. In '73, the term internet was first coined. Then in 1992, .edu, like rockvalleycollege.edu, .com, .org domains began to become available to businesses and individuals to purchase. '93, 2 college students from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign developed the very first web browser, Mozilla Netscape. You might have heard of that. And so it actually came from Illinois, that students from our state developed the very first web browser. Once we had the web browser, things began to really escalate as far as speed of technology. I was remembering back in '93 when this web browser first came out, and seeing the very first image come down from a website. The very first one I can remember, it took like 7 minutes on a dial-up modem for an image to come down. It was a logo of a university that had posted a page on their website. It was basically one page, the name of the university, and their logo. And it took 7 minutes to load. But I was pretty excited. And a lot of people were. And some of you remember when that happened. But if you think about waiting 7 minutes for anything today, people would throw their computers out the window, right? And their phones out the window because we don't want to wait 7 seconds. And we'll show a chart here in a second that really shows that. But in 1998, from 1993 to 1998, 3 million domains were purchased. That's websites. So businesses, individuals purchased 3 million in that short period of time. In 2011, 530% increase of internet usage from 2001 of just general users using the internet. And this is global, not just in the US. That's mind-boggling. Towards the end of the web era, before we get to the mobile era, cloud applications and cloud storage came about. Anybody heard of software, cloud apps like Dropbox? Anybody heard of Dropbox before? Some of you use that maybe on your computers or on your mobile. It gave us a capability to be at our computer at work, save a document to Dropbox, go to your iPad, open it up from Dropbox, or go to your Android mobile, open it up from Dropbox, go to your mobile phone, open it up from Dropbox. And so it began to, no longer did users have to take their computer with them. It could be anywhere they had a browser, they could now get their data. Also with cloud applications. Has anybody heard of Google before? Hopefully everybody, all right? Google prides itself in mobile applications, meaning anybody in here within a 5-minute period, I can show you how to create and sign up and create your first mobile application using Google's development tools. It's dragging and dropping and creating. And so you can create it for your business, for individual purposes, everything from a fancy spreadsheet to a video input and output program. And so companies began to use these services, like I mentioned, that Google has. The other big service that uses cloud application and storage is Amazon. Amazon is the #1 cloud provider, meaning they offer more data, pure data, and what I mean by data, movies, music, books, cloud applications than any other company in the world. And Amazon, if you probably don't know, is linked directly to Kindle, which is a huge seller. And Amazon's also now talking to Apple to integrate its services with the new iPad that's coming out and the new iOS updates, the new operating system updates. So the cloud applications and storage now make it possible for the internet to catapult the market, the mobile market demand for tablets and other devices through the roof. It's just, sky's the limit now that we have cloud applications and storage. And that brings us to the third one and the last one I'm going to camp on for a while, which is a post-PC era that we're talking about tonight. And the question you might be asking is, are we really in a post-PC era? A quote here from a gentleman called Ray Ozzie from Microsoft said this about post-PC. In fact, he's a gentleman that took over after Bill Gates left Microsoft, took over as CEO. He said, people argue about, are we in a post-PC world? Why are we arguing? Of course we're in a post-PC world. That doesn't mean the PC dies. That just means that scenarios that we use them in, we stop referring to them as PCs, we refer to them as other things. And that's what we do. In the technology world and in programming, whatever device works, whatever other device works, whatever other device people have, that's what we use. Used to, businesses bought every piece of computer hardware that you needed to complete your work. Today, we'll find out in just a second, that's not the case. There's a term that we'll talk about in a second called BYOD that changes the whole schema of mobile technology and even business, how we use mobile technology. Windows 8. This is the newest operating system that Windows is developing. Ray Ozzie is a software developer that was a CEO, recently stepped down from Microsoft. And the platform for Windows 8 is mobile tablets. That's what it's designed for. And that's a smart move on Microsoft. Because who's the other competitor that Microsoft has? Anybody? Apple, right? That's a big competitor that they have on the market. So they developed Windows 8 to work on mobile devices. And I've seen demos of it, and it's pretty slick. It's pretty tactile, and it's touch screen and everything that it does. In fact, I helped an individual set one up here recently on a tablet, and it's really nice. It was actually showing, I was showing him how to use browsing pictures using Windows 8 on his tablet, and it's really, really cool operating system. But here's what Ray Ozzie said. He said, the fate of Windows 8 will determine Microsoft's future. The latest version of the company's operating system will work on tablets. And so he's basically saying that this is going to make or break Microsoft's future when it comes to market share with operating systems, with users. Because users are using mobile, whether it be a phone or whether it be a tablet. And the question isn't, are they using it? We know that's a fact, and we'll see some stats here in a second. It's what are they going to do about it? So that's where Windows 8 came around. In 2012, Hewlett-Packard, this year, laid off 27,000 workers. And Dell profits fell 64% this year and closed multiple plants in the last month. But let's look at Apple's sales. Increased, comprised 30% of the post-PC sales. That's the other term that Ray Ozzie used. And 80% of those were iPads. 80% of those mobile devices were iPads. Here's a emerging mobile platform this is from PC World. I wanted to kind of switch screens to show you this in a bigger view. Tony Bradley from PC World did an article in July of this year, or last year actually, and he did a 30 days with the iPad. Now again, this is a year old. 30 days with the iPad series comes to a close, he says. I set out on the journey. The goal was determining whether the iPad's capable of replacing my Windows 7 notepad or notebook. And now it's time to review the experience. To score it, let's look at some common functions I need to do with my primary computing platform and determine if the iPad can deliver. So he went over some categories, and notice all of them are yes. From web surfing to email, office productivity, managing contacts, backing up to cloud, VPN into the computer at the company, online meetings, video conferencing, calendar, social networking, finance, printing and scanning. So nothing he did on a daily basis could not be done on an iPad. That could be said also for basically any tablet that's on the market now. We all know the iPads are leading the way in sales, but all these other tablet devices are following suit and being developed, and all of these that are mentioned for the iPad probably could be said for all these other tablets as well. While I'm on this screen, I'm going to go ahead and go to some more stats here. This is a pretty cool chart. It's iPadsInSchools.com. Has some pretty good stats I wanted to bring out. Called Baby Tech. It says nearly half of the first-time mobile tech users aren't even in kindergarten yet. I've got a 3-year-old grandson, and he uses the iPad. He has his favorite applications he uses. He can use them better than I can. Angry Birds, he like flies through that like crazy, and then he's got 2 or 3 math applications, and he's only 3 years old. And he's asking me questions about how to get to things, and I say, because all these applications have videos that you can watch to see how to work it, how to use it. He starts up the application, watches all the videos, the tutorials, then he uses it. 3 years old. He's already figured it out. But these stats are crazy. 0 to 1 years old, 10%. 2 to 4, 39% using iPad. 5 to 8, 52%. 7 out of 10 children today are using tablets of some type. And it breaks it down by category: iPad, iPod Touch, iPhone, tablet, computer, and computer. Notice the computer on the top, the right, is the least amount percentage being used. It's mainly on the mobile platforms. This next one is on some of the stats on sales. Within the first 45 days of sales, iPad sales, when it first was released, 47,000 of them were sold to schools in the US. Because it's only been around since 2009. It's 2012. It's not been around that long. 1.5 million iPads currently are used by students in education to increase significantly and become more of a standard. 20,000 learning apps are available currently for the iPad. And if you've never played with an iPad, I'll let you play with one when you leave tonight. Just a screen, just what I'm doing right here tonight, being able to do this and manipulate your screen to blow things up and to highlight things did not happen easily in a PC world, in a desktop world, or in a laptop world. Then the iPad or Apple came out with the iBooks, which basically allows, the iBooks actually allow for anyone to create a textbook. Anyone. You don't just have to be a teacher. You just have to sign up for an Apple ID. You can begin creating a text to train your folks at work on whatever, to train corporate leadership skills, programming, whatever it is you want, you can create textbooks for free and post them for folks to use. Tons of free stuff for education right now for the iPad and other tablet devices, mainly for the iPad because it's just the one that everyone's using and everyone's programming for when it comes to programmers. But it's used right now more than 1,000 colleges worldwide. Currently here in Rock Valley, we have a pilot program with iPads. We have around 15 faculty currently using iPads in their coursework and delivery. I had an email yesterday from a faculty member that used a program called iAnnotate for the first time in class, and she was going over stats in the presidential election and highlighting them with her stylus on the iPad and blowing stuff up for the students to see on the screen, and she was so excited. I used it for the first time and it worked, and she got a lot out of it. And so, but look at this, 500,000 pieces of audio and video have been offered, or are being offered. 700 million downloads currently. And then this stat was really mind-boggling, and I backed this up on a couple different other areas. It says in 2012 there was a study group that tested a group of kindergartners before dividing them into two groups, one with iPads and one without. After 9 weeks, the student with iPads tested higher than the non-iPad students in every literacy measure. That's crazy. That means it works. Like my 3-year-old gets it, and he's going to be using it more than likely when he starts kindergarten and first grade and second grade, and so on. And that's actually the target for Apple was definitely, which was a smart move, targeting K through 12 first and hitting colleges second. We're just now starting to see colleges being targeted with the iPad. And you might have seen recently in the news, the new iPad that's coming out, or you might have heard rumors of it. There is a new iPad coming out. They're supposed to be announcing it sometime in October, but it's supposed to be in between the Kindle size and the size we currently have of the iPad, somewhere in there. And the price point is supposed to be between $249 and $299, which for students, for you guys, for college students, you can afford that because they're buying Kindles right now, and you can afford $299, but maybe not so much $500, which is a price tag for a base model for an iPad. But it offers deep student engagement. I have an application I use a lot in my classes, especially office development classes, where I quiz students at the first of every session to determine their skills, basically. And what it does with this application, it's called Teacher App. I have questions on the overhead, and then on their computers or on their mobile devices, they answer these questions, and then you see a dynamic graph show up on the overhead of the responses, anonymous responses of where their skill sets are. And then we can discuss that. And then also I can tailor my lessons to mimic or to shadow the results of those talks. And so it's a great tool to use. Special needs. A friend of mine has a special needs child with Down syndrome, and they use the iPad apps for a lot of stuff. But in the last 2 years, there's been about 900 apps as of 2012 developed for autism only related symptoms, which a year and a half ago didn't exist. These applications didn't exist. $15,000, this is before the iPad devices dedicated, what it costs before the iPads for devices dedicated to do the same thing a 99-cent app does on the Apple iStore. It's crazy what's being done. And look at the categories that's being targeted. Specifically for students with disabilities, students with autism, speech, language, reading, writing and spelling, communication, listening, organizational note-taking. And I believe this will also be morphed over. The same developers for iPad will develop the same application for other platforms as well, I'm guessing, in the future. But they're targeting iPads right now because that's the one that schools have, and teachers have, and students have to work with. 90% of the users use iPad in this augmented communication app for communication. 25% of the users use an iPhone or iPod Touch. Half of the users reported improved speech capabilities with these applications. So it's just amazing the things that are being done with the iPad alone in education for students. Now businesses, how are businesses impacted with the iPad? The businesses today are greatly impacted. During the day I develop Windows applications for a local company, and here in the last 6 months they've began shifting their focus on mobile devices. And so all the sales folks and all the folks in engineering now have iPads or are getting iPads to begin to see how they can be used in the field. Right now it's being used for such things like, getting their email, taking a picture of a product in the field and emailing it and sending it back to the home office, being able to make dynamic bids to send to customers, or showing on the iPad a product and having them being able to manipulate that product on the screen to see how it works and maybe 3D model. The other thing is customized apps can be easily created on an iPad device or tablet device and pushed to a cloud app to where it can be accessed from any mobile device and mobile tablet. Paperless, a lot of companies now, in fact almost every company I know is going green, meaning trying not to print paper. And if I was to query everybody in here, most of you at home probably can't remember the last time you printed something from your home printer. I have a fairly new printer at the house, and I was thinking while I was preparing this, I've only used it maybe 3 times in the last year to print anything. I email everything to folks, to colleagues, students. They email me. I answer back via email. If I make a change on a document, I change it, send it back. They view it on their screen. But very rarely do we print. And mobile helps with that. And then creating new jobs. We're going to look at a video now on how mobile devices have caused jobs to be created, which we all know is needed in today's market.
Everybody in this room is building apps. They're designing apps.
When Scroll Motion co-founder Josh Coppell walks through his firm's bustling office in Midtown Manhattan,
This is our product group.
even he is astounded by the firm's rapid growth.
1 year ago, we were 30 people. Today, we are 130 people. I know that about 130 people out there wouldn't be employed were it not for an iPad.
Call it the company the iPad built. Scroll Motion was founded 4 years ago to help publishers build flashy new apps for their books and magazines. Today, it's enjoying new growth as the wider business world embraces apps to power their operations.
Bring up the comic.
Other New York companies are also adding staff as the iPad and other tablets gain in popularity. Downtown at the offices of Comixology, 20-somethings are busy formatting the latest comics from DC and Marvel for the iPad and other devices.
When the iPad came out, I guess we were probably about 6 to 7 people. Now we're about 50.
Here in the Rockford region, I'm teaching a class in the spring 2013 on iPad development. I've had about 25 calls from local businesses wanting us to develop apps for their business and be a test bed. And that's just in the Rockford region. That's just here in Rockford. It's amazing the need that businesses have. And we have the talent here, I believe, locally in our school in Rock Valley College to do that. While I'm talking about that, I'll go ahead and plug it. At the end of this talk, there's going to be a Facebook page to go to. If you go to that Facebook page, there'll be a link to this video tonight, this talk tonight, along with the link to the iOS development course in the spring. And if you're interested in that, go to the website that's on that link and on Facebook. It should answer any questions you have, but if you have any questions, I'll also have my email on the screen at the end to where you can email me if you have any questions. Now, you yourself might not want to go into iPad development, but you might know somebody that does, and you can forward them that information. But as you can see from the video, the one company added almost 130 jobs just because of a tablet device, okay? And we saw the stats of Hewlett-Packard and Dell dropping in sales, and they develop personal computers. That's what they do. That's what they sell. And so we are in a post-PC, not just a post-PC era, we are in a post-PC generation, basically, where most K through 12, I'll throw my 3-year-old grandson in there, are mobile. When they go to buy a PC, when they go buy a computer, it'll more than likely be a tablet device or a mobile device when that day comes. And so these next few slides talk about how people are impacted. Consumers, how are consumers impacted like yourself? The sales of smartphones are expected to top 108 million in 2012. It's over 24% increase of 2011, and the amount is $33.7 billion. Tablet sales will more than double to 68.5 million. That's up 15% from last year, and accounts for $29.2 billion in sales, 83% increase from 2011. Combined smartphones and tablets are expected to account for 30% of electronic revenue for 2012. Society, how many is on Facebook right now? Raise your hand, you're on Facebook. How many of your grandparents, parents are on Facebook? Okay, about the same amount. I have family that live all over the U.S., and so we keep in touch with each other via Facebook. Photos, they go on an adventure, they post the pictures, a new baby is born, pictures are posted. But I just named a few things social media has impacted because of mobile, post-PC, other devices. Birthdays, events, causes, business marketing is all changed. The scheme has totally changed now. The landscape has changed because of mobile. People can be posting stuff about their business at lunch break, how many uses Twitter and Twitter accounts? Twitter accounts is huge for business marketing, and that's another social media. Anything social media, how it's impacted our society and how we communicate, it definitely has. And there is some downsides to it, meaning people won't talk to each other, they'll Facebook each other, or they'll tweet each other. We can either fight that or we can work with it. Personally, I try to work with it. Even though I love to talk, as you can see tonight, I love to talk to people as I came around trying to meet everybody tonight before we started. But this does help businesses, it does help people communicate. And I've also found it helps students who maybe would not communicate if it wasn't for social media or have a hard time communicating. And this has helped them come out of their shell maybe and to communicate and to get out there and to spread their wings and to see what it's like to interact and to get good positive feedback. And so there are some good positive things about it. So where are we now? BYOD, I mentioned this earlier. Anybody heard of that term before? BYOD? BYOD? One or two of you? Okay. I'm going to leave it up there for just a second. And this is a term that's been used for the last 2 years in business. And what it's all about is basically bringing your own device. Bringing your own device to work. It's a phrase that's become widely used and adopted that refers to employees who bring their own computing devices, whether it be an iPad, whether it be a mobile phone, whether it be an Android device, such as smartphones, laptops, PDAs, to the workplace to connect to the corporate network, okay? For years, business fought this. They fought it tooth and nail. Being in networking myself and being a network administrator for a number of businesses, we would have strict rules on people bringing their own devices to work and plugging them into the network. Anybody had those rules when you worked at places, or maybe now currently. And there's some valid reasons for that. One is security. You don't want corporate data going into somebody's laptop or tablet and then going somewhere else it shouldn't be going, or into the hands of somewhere else that they shouldn't have. So what's happened is there's been software developed that basically is a wrapper for what the corporate environment wants users to use from any device. Okay, this wrapper application, they log in with a secure login, they can get to the corporate data, but they generally cannot take it out of that environment. It's just enclosed in that environment, in that application, okay? So we're not be able to save it anywhere or send it anywhere. It's just enclosed in that application. And here's some mind-boggling stats on just the adoption of iPads in the last year. 80% of Fortune 100 companies have adopted iPads. 88% of 88 of the Fortune 100 are deploying iPhones. 500 or 50% of the FTSE, this is a London 100 stock exchange, are using iPhones. 20% of Fortune 100s have about 10,000 plus iPhones that they're using in the field. And this is from a Perian, which is a technology surveying company. So bring your own device. This is huge. This is where we're at today. This is where we're at with the post-PC generation, post-PC world. Companies usually develop one application. I put it in caps because that's why I develop applications for a living, and so besides teaching, I do that as well during the day. And so it's great now we can develop one application, and in that one application can be like a launch pad, or the key term a lot of places are using is basically they're creating applications that are dashboards. You might have heard of that term, a dashboard application. What a dashboard application is, I can drag and drop any application I want to do onto my application, and those drag and dropping items are called dashboards. A dashboard could be a spreadsheet, it could be a sales forecast, it could be a scheduling dashboard, it could be a word processing dashboard, you name it, it can be created. But the second bullet highlights two new terminologies in development for applications. One is mobile device management, MDM. The other is mobile application management, MAM. This is software vendors that develop applications for post-PC other devices. And they are forced to develop these applications to support any mobile device, from BlackBerry to iPad to Android devices. But Apple's products are mandatory just because they have the market share, the highest market share in the market. And due to the market saturation in both private and public sectors, that's first priorities. Their first generation app is always for the iPad, and then they make it for the other ones later. And this is from zdnet.com. And so bring your own device is a popular term you'll hear. If you've not heard yet, you will hear it in the business market. And what it means is what it sounds like, bring your own device. And then we'll give you the application to use to get your work done. And that application can a lot of times be accessed from a website. You log in, you get your work done from anywhere. You no longer have to carry a laptop or be at your PC or even your big Mac at work. You can just be on a tablet device and access all of your work. Calendar, files, email, everything can be done via this one app. A couple apps I'll recommend if you have an iPad or if you're getting one that I really recommend, it's not on the presentation, is one is iCloud On. It's called Cloud On, actually, is what they renamed it. Cloud On is an application that allows you to create or edit Office applications, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. It uses a Dropbox for its storage medium, and it's free. It doesn't cost anything. I was in Best Buy over the weekend, which I hate going to, even though I like Best Buy. I don't like going for the fact that when you walk in, do you guys know what I'm talking about? When you walk in, you're bombarded with, can I help you, can I help you, can I help you? And these are kids that are doing their job, what they're supposed to do. But I like to go in and just get what I want and then leave and not be bothered. But anyway, I happened to overhear a person that was buying an iPad ask a sales personnel, can I get Office for my iPad? And I could tell he didn't know the answer. And so I waited till he left, and I don't know what he told her. But I said, hey, I teach at Rock Valley College. I work with iPads all the time. And I shared with her what I'm sharing with you about Cloud On, how you can use that to create and edit Office documents. And she asked me, how much is it? It's totally free. It doesn't cost anything. It was developed by software developers, and they use open source plugins that Office lets developers use to develop Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. It has a nice ribbon up there and everything. In fact, I'll go ahead and fire it up here to show you. We're almost done here, so let me go ahead and fire it up and show you what it looks like. Is it showing up there? All right, great. Okay, cool. Okay, everybody see the Dropbox folder? I'm going to go ahead now and go to my Dropbox folder, and let's open up a document. Any document. This is a Word document, I believe I'm opening it up. It was created September 13th. And has anybody used Word 2007 or 2010 right now? Okay, you'll see the similarities here in a second. When it loads up the document, you see at the very top, there's your ribbon for Word 2007. And it's all there for you to manipulate and to highlight. The nice big keyboard. But what's really great about this is, besides just that, I can create on the fly Word, Excel, and PowerPoint files as well using Cloud On. And once I create it, it stores it in my Dropbox account to be used from any other computer that has Word or Office on it or PowerPoint. Or I can just bring my tablet anywhere I'm at. You can email me a document. I can open it up and use Cloud On to edit it. Pretty cool, right? Totally free, doesn't cost anything. Okay, so surviving in a post-PC world. We went over tonight, Wave 1, desktop era, Wave 2, web era, Wave 3, the post-PC era, and left you with a couple key terms. One is the BYOD, which is bring your own device, which is huge today. There's my email. The one thing I do want you to note is a Facebook page. I don't know if you can see it in the back, but it's facebook.com, Professor Chuck Conkle. I will have this talk that's being recorded on this page, along with I'll go ahead and put up there the PowerPoint as well, with all the video and links. I'll also have on the Facebook page a link to the iOS development course that I'll be teaching in the spring. So I'll go ahead and open it up for any questions you might have real quick for the next couple minutes. I've got 7 o'clock, and so I'm going to end a little early. So any general questions you might have, go ahead and throw them at me, and I'll try to answer them for you. Yeah. Okay, it's a good question. His question was Steve Jobs, since he's no longer with us, and he was kind of the driving force with the iPad and the iOS devices, and how do I foresee that going forward? Tim Cook, who's taken over for him, he mentored for like 5 years prior to leaving. And I don't know if you notice when you watch Tim Cook, he looks like Steve Jobs. Okay? His mannerisms and everything. Now, granted, everything I've read about Tim Cook is he's a little bit more of a miser than Jobs was as far as the finances go. So you're not going to see them take a lot of risk. But the one thing I did like about recently that happened was with the new iOS release, where they took Google Maps out of the iOS release and they replaced it with their own maps, which was kind of a debacle to some people. They didn't like it. It kind of, shook up the mobile world. He apologized and said that was a wrong move. We shouldn't have done that. that we should have, waited a little bit. And he suggested some other apps for people to use. But I thought for a CEO of a company that size, that scope, to say that, to apologize, I think speaks a lot for character and things. And so I think he's going to go help Apple go to that next era for sure, definitely. That's a great question. Great question. Any other questions you guys have? Yeah. Meaning, like no security? No security. That's a good question. Is security going to kind of be a big issue? It is a big issue. The developing platforms I mentioned, the mobile developing platforms that are currently being used for businesses to use, are basically what they're focused on is the security component of it. And so when you log into these applications and get into that application world that you're working in, you'll basically be locked down to only work within that environment. And so, but that's taken about a year and a half of development for them to start seeing that and developing on hitting those security notes that they need to hit. Because one of the reasons businesses were leery of iPads and tablets was what you just mentioned, which was security. But with the new apps that are coming out, that Cisco's making, Amazon's making, Google, they're very secure, very robust, and anything that basically you could do on a desktop in the past and a laptop in the past, those applications give you that same security. Those wrapper applications give you that same security. And so it's a great question, and it's a question that these the developers like myself have been having to put into programs the last year to answer those questions, because businesses don't want their corporate data out there in the world just for anyone to see. They want to make sure it's secure. And so, great question. Any other questions on anything post-PC or tablet? Yeah. Lifespan of a tablet compared to a PC. Right now, on average, about 3 years, 2.5, 3 years, the lifespan of a tablet. In every work environment I've been in corporate and also education, the lifespan of most computers, both desktop and laptop, has been anywhere from 3 to 5 years before they change to new life cycle. And so it's going to be about the same life cycle as your PC, your standard PC and desktops have been in the past. So, great question. Any other questions? Yes.
I'm just understanding the whole concept of the cloud, and like Adobe's been asking me if I want to buy it. Is the whole cloud idea, is that going to become like open source where you can just get in there and?
Well, everyone's charged, even Google, which I mentioned earlier. Google does have free space you can sign up for, but they also have for corporate environments paid space, to where I get like 2 gigs of space free through Google. But if I'm a corporate environment, I want to say 100 gigs, I have to pay for that. Adobe, I'm not real familiar with. I know Adobe in the past, though, doesn't give much out for free. And so more than likely, Adobe's not going to offer anything free to the consumer. It's going to cost a little bit, maybe not a lot, but it's going to cost a little bit to do. So that's a good question. Yes? Microsoft 8 I have worked with for about the last 6 months on the beta release. And like I said earlier in the presentation, it's a solid operating system. I like the touch screen of the iPad, which I want you guys to play with before you leave. I'll leave it up here. Is fairly close to the touch screen of the iPad. You get multi-finger gestures it has in it. It's built for tablet devices. And I heard through the rumor mill that a lot of the retired developers from Apple actually went over to Microsoft to help them with this project. And so, which makes sense, which is smart. And so, but yeah, it's a great OS. There's nothing wrong with Windows 8. I think it's going to be a promising thing for Windows and for Microsoft, because as we saw tonight, everything's going mobile. iPads have the market share right now, and if they're going to grab anything, if they're going to grab the market share and hold on to it, they're going to have to make something for the tablet devices. And so, definitely recommend it. I definitely would not say it's a product you shouldn't go out and get, because from what I've seen, it's a pretty solid platform. Windows 8 is, definitely. Excellent question. Any other questions? Yep.
And let's just going back to, the kids, the K through 12, but, they're using a lot of tablets, and they're also modifying tablets for special needs.
Right.
In the special needs tablet, I mean, that's just a regular tablet, right? Are there special applications?
It's an app, yeah, special applications, correct.
So for each, say, category of special needs, like I've read that, tablets are great with autistic kids, and that they really start communicating to them. But, with other kinds of special needs, like if you said the speech,
Yes.
would that be like a special application?
There, yeah, if you want to see me before you leave, I'll open up my iPad for you guys to look at, but I've got some special applications on here, and I can show you some in the App Store that are, and then you can email me as well. I have a friend of mine that who has a child with autism that uses tons of iPad applications, and then I have another friend that has a child of Down, two Downs children, and they use tons of iPad applications as well, all on speech, and remembering terms and pictures and things of that nature. And so even there's a new application that just came out it just came across my email yesterday, made for folks with Alzheimer's. It basically records, it's a device you wear around your lapel, and you walk around through the day, and it takes pictures of what you've done that day. Then when you come, you don't have to do anything, it just automatically takes pictures. Then when you come back to your iPad, it dumps it into this application, and you can review your day within moments. And Microsoft actually came up with this product, and they didn't see a market for it. A medical company bought it and developed the lapel camera, and I saw a video of it today, and it was pretty awesome for folks with Alzheimer's, and be able to remember where they've been and what they've done. And so, yeah, it's just amazing the things that are, the innovation that's occurring. Do I know? I need that too. Yeah, I thought about getting it for myself to remember where I've been this morning. Yes.
The technology is that market share, like Windows operating is so much higher than the other. Is that going to be a general rule that with any technology that one provider is going to have a huge part of the market share, whatever it is, compared to somebody else?
Yeah, I don't think that part's going to change as far as, Windows has always been, and I talked to somebody before the session about this, Windows has always prided itself in office productivity, okay, office productivity, and they will continue to do that. The only difference you'll see in Windows and Microsoft Windows is they'll shift from the desktop laptop environment to tablet, okay? Apple, who has an iPad and the other iDevices, will continue as well to work with, you'll see them start working with like healthcare and education, higher education, to develop applications in specialized medicine, specialized education, to reach areas that's not being reached. And so two separate entities though. Microsoft, that's why they kind of sold their patent on the camera device I just mentioned to another company, because that doesn't fit into their business model. Their business model has always been office productivity. It's not going to change. The only thing that's going to change is the platform that's on, which is going to be Windows 8 and mobile devices. So market share is going to basically be the same as far as what they do. But we'll kind of just have to wait and see on Windows 8 how consumers and businesses grab onto it to see where it goes. But I think from what I've seen, it's a good platform, definitely. So, Windows, just like Apple does this, they will tell you a date, and then that date comes and goes. But I've heard anywhere from 1st of January to March of next year that could be released to the public. So, good question. Just keep watching the news and go to Microsoft.com, and you can even email me, and I'll be more than glad to give you any information I have. So, any other questions? Well, thanks for coming tonight, And remember the Facebook page. Come up and see me before you leave. You want to see my setup? Appreciate it.